How's it going, everybody? ChaoticMeatball here, and welcome back to another Hardcore Nuzlocke featuring a broken legendary. Today's choice is not remotely broken whatsoever. To celebrate the lack of a Pokemon Z version, I'm going to be going through X and Y with Zygarde, albeit at only 50% of his power. Maybe we'll save Perfect Zygarde for a future Gen 7 run. Wait, that's not even the official name of it, right? Well, shoot. It's just the complete form, or 100% form. And here I thought they just ripped off Dragon Ball Z completely. Well anyway, Zygarde is a Dragon Ground type with the base stat total of 600. Sound familiar? Well, Garchomp is a good Pokemon, whereas Zygarde is bad. Our only similarity here is the same base 108 HP, everything else about Zygarde is pretty miffed at best. Base 95 speed means we're not at that base 100 benchmark that you really want for games Gen 6 and onward, so we'll likely be outsped by key threats late game without a level advantage, and our offenses aren't that much either. 81 special attack isn't anything to scoff at, but on a legendary it's pretty pitiful, especially when my only options are Dragon Breath, Dragon Pulse at level 63, aka just for the league, Hidden Power, Hyper Beam, Sludge Wave, Round, Focus Blast, and Grass Knot. I'm gonna have my work cut out for me. But hey, at least I have a Fairy type counter, right? Wrong. Sludge Wave is a TM locked behind the Battle Maison in the postgame. The better offensive stat here is physical attack at a base 100, but even that isn't fantastic when we're looking at a similar mon in Garchomp with a base 130 attack. To top it all off, Zygarde can't get Dragon Claw, one of the best physical dragon moves, and while it does learn Outrage by level up, it doesn't learn it until level 93, and our last level cap is 65, so we won't be getting anywhere close. The only choice I have for a physical dragon type move is Dragon Tail, a 60 power, 90% accurate move with negative priority that swaps out an opponent's Pokemon when the attack hits. Yeah, definitely booty, but at least we'll have access to powerful stab ground moves like Bulldoze, Dig, Land's Wrath, and eventually Earthquake, with coverage from Bite and Crunch on the dark side, Brick Break for fighting, and Rock Slide and Stone Edge for the rock typing. However, even more negatives pop up with those coverage moves. Negatives here with Crunch being learned at level 51, so only after the 7th gym, with no TMs to supplement. Neither Rock Slide or Stone Edge are obtainable without access to Waterfall outside of battle, so aka after the 8th gym, and Brick Break is in Terminus Cave, an area only accessible after the final showdown with Team Flare right before the 8th gym, meaning all of our best TMs will be inaccessible for 80 to 90% of the run. After all that complaining though, why would I try this? Isn't this absolutely dumb? Well, I do like doing stupid things just to say that I kicked it in the good old fanny, so let's just jump into it and see if I can't make it through with my least favorite Dragon Ground type. Make sure to subscribe if you haven't yet. We're closing in on 120,000 subscribers, and a whopping 55% of you guys aren't subscribed. So go check to make sure if you've smashed it, and while you're at it, Dragon Claw right on through that like button as well. Because Zygarde ain't gonna be doing any of that shit here today. Let's aim for 2,000 likes, and let's just jump in. So first things first, the starter I replaced up in Aquacord Town is Fennekin. I figured that giving Serena Froakie and eventually Greninja would be the most difficult, especially because the developers were actually intelligent enough here and gave the rival Ice Beam for the final battle before the league. She won't have it before then, but hey, at least Water Shuriken will be neutral damage. Of course, straight after I have to fight not Serena, but Shauna. She uses the starter that's not very effective, which in this case is Chespin, who incidentally is also neutral against Zygarde, just not as good as Froakie. A few Dragon Breaths nail this fight quickly, leaving me to head up north onto Route 2 and into Santaloon Forest. Now while we spend some time getting ourselves to the first gym, I wanted to talk about Zygarde's EV spread, as it's actually going to be changing quite a bit during this video. Gen 6 really has the EV training methods down when it comes to convenience, since I can both just EV train without fighting a single Pokemon, and therefore don't need to worry about working within my level caps, and I can get reset bags from super training, so if I have to shift focus to a special base strategy or defensive stall strategy, I can have the option by simply punching a bag a metric shitload of times. This isn't too relevant yet, but I will say that I've got a spread in of a bit of HP, maxed out attack, and relatively high investments in speed to go along here. I don't need max speed for the beginning of the game to get around early threats, so that HP will do me much better until later when I need that speed in order to, not lose all of that extra HP. With all that said though, our first gym battle is against Viola and her bug types, and we don't have access to any rock type moves, so we'll have to go in with the tried and true Unga Bunga hit hard strategy. Viola leads off with a Surskit, so we'll have to worry about Bubble being a neutral attack, but it's barely a threat, as Dragon Breath is an effective 2-shot, paralyzing on the first turn to ensure that even if Bubble lowered Zygarde's speed, which it didn't, I'd still be able to get to her second and last Pokemon in Vivillon without getting hit a second time. Now Vivillon is a bit of a war of attrition. Dragon Breath and Bite versus Infestation, which one can yield out more damage? Well, that turns up being Bite, but not after Dragon Breath does just shy of what Bite does, making it so that Viola can use a potion after using a Dragon Breath and 2 bites, but 2 more bites is enough to make it through the Infestation damage, KOing and winning me the match. Yeah, if the first gym leader is giving me pause and nearly getting my legendary into the red, then we're gonna have a problem. Let's try to mitigate those threats as much as possible throughout though. There's not too much interesting between gyms 1 and 2, though that doesn't mean there's not a lot of things between them. Seriously, when I played through this game for the first time, I thought this was just going to be the natural progression of things, that I was going to have a team around level 90 by the Elite Four, and that the gyms would have several hours of content between them. After all, we're on the 3DS now. We're in 3D, doing some really neat stuff. But alas, that wasn't the case. Turns out the game was rushed, like most Pokemon games in the modern age are, but we won't get into that depressive state. After all, we have Scarlet and Violet coming, and they look like they're going to be fantastic after that recent Pokemon Presents, so I'm hoping that we have nothing to fear. Another bit I'd bring up though throughout our adventure here are the berry trees. These berry trees have different colored berries that drop from them, and they drop a berry each day. Now, I don't want to abuse these like I have in runs past, but I figured I'd bring it up since it's not hard to get infinite Lum or Citrus berries if you're willing to wait it out, or use PK Hex because technically you can wait it out, but I have to do it for content, so yay! Also, since there's so much in between these gyms, I figured I'd ask you guys a question to leave an answer down in the comments before we finally get into our next gym leader. Do you prefer the style of 3D used in Gen 6 or Gen 7 more? I think the grid-based structure definitely feels more anatomically correct for a Pokemon game, and that was to the benefit of Omega Ruby and Alpha Sapphire to keep the remakes in line for what you'd expect from the originals while enhancing the look of them, so that's probably the argument for Gen 6, but Gen 7 really was the first set of games that allowed Pokemon to start jumping out of that rut that it recently found itself in terms of design and badge progression and such, as Kalos felt like the least memorable region in a while, and Omega Ruby and Alpha Sapphire were considered inferior to the originals. Oddly enough, though, I think ORAS are better games than Ruby and Sapphire, but not better than Emerald due to the amount of extra content available, especially with the Battle Frontier. Omitting those extra features that were in third versions out of remakes, without at least filling those gaps, like the Sevi Islands in Fire Red Leaf Green and the Pokeathlon and Safari Zone did in Heart Gold Soul Silver, really made those in BDSP feel inferior, despite both sets of remakes having characteristics that put them above their originals, such as BDSP and them not running like fucking molasses compared to the Diamond and Pearl versions on DS that ran absolutely abysmally. I'm very much a fan of which the speed is on version 1.0.0, a shame that a lot of that stuff is missing from the version that's in the post-game, and that you have to update to get stuff like Ramana's Park in the entirety of the post-game island, but I digress, that's a lot of talking. And hey, at least it was enough talking to get us to Grant. He's our next gym leader to deal with, using the base forms of both Gen 6 fossils leading off with Amara. Now this guy's a little bit scary. Takedown with Refrigerate being the ability of choice here means we're going against an Ice-type takedown. However, Dig is a one-shot on both him and Tyrant, so why the f*** should I care? With 25% of the badges in hand, it's a hop and a skip through Route 10 to get to Geosenge Town and the first battle against Karina, who goes really easily. Also, gotta ask while we're here, is this town's name a blend of Stonehenge and the Georgia Guidestones? Or am I reading too much into it and Geo is just a prefix meaning rock? I prefer the former. Would be hilarious after the recent destruction of the Guidestones. Reflection Cave is just ahead, and boy howdy, I actually read the Bulbapedia article recently about the way the anime adapted this area, and seeing the way they integrated an alternate reality version of Ash and Serena and made them generic sad anime protagonist and tsundere without interest in the main character respectively was kinda neat. But man, I'm going off in way too many directions in this run. Guess that's just the downside of Kalos as a region being really boring. Upon entrance into Shalor City, I make my way into the Tower of Mastery for my first battle against Serena. She's got a decent team, leading off with a Meowstic that uses Fake Out to flinch Zygarde before I land with Land's Wrath, taking a light Psybeam following the first and KOing with the second. Absol's second out, and while this does outspeed, it doesn't after a single Bulldoze, so after taking a Quick Attack, I hit 2 consecutive Bulldozes for the KO, leaving just Frogadier to use Quick Attack as well, falling to a single Land's Wrath. Guess I don't really need Earthquake early game, when Land's Wrath is just the same move with 10 less power. Anyway, Karina time, and she's not too much of a struggle. With Return in hand and having max happiness for it already, I'm able to just pummel through the likes of Hawlucha, but first up is Mienfoo, going down to a Land's Wrath after getting that pot shot of a Fake Out in, leading to said Hawlucha. Now I'm gonna blame this mistake on the controller I was using. I got this nice little SN30 Pro from 8-Bit Dough that I started using with this run, but I must have just missed the up button since I clicked Land's Wrath against the flying type. I'm not that dumb, ladies and gentlemen. I'm dumb, but I'm not that dumb. Hawlucha's immune, sets up a Hone Claws, but I'm able to use Dragon Breath next turn and get that paralysis in order to become faster. Not on that turn, but on the next turn, but she goes for a third Hone Claws, getting too greedy and allowing me to KO scot-free. Last out is Machoke, taking around 80% off of Land's Wrath and missing a Rock Tomb as she gets heal locked with a Hyper Potion, making for a KO with a Dragon Breath and a Land's Wrath to get the win. Well, that wasn't bad at all, and I made sure to do it under the level cap, since Ramos, our next target's cap, only increases by a grand total of 2. And that's a good thing, because I almost didn't make it under the level cap. I was just like really close. It wasn't helped because of another battle against Serena, and this battle is just the same as the last one. Like, it is almost attack for attack the same fight, so why talk about it more than I have to? She seems bummed, but, you know, I got an old man to punch out, so who am I to care? Ramos starts off with a Jumpluff, thankfully using Grass Knot here instead of Leech Seed, as that would have been a disaster for 2 more Pokemon, plus it would have made Return a 3-shot instead of a 2, allowing for me to easily get to Go-Go. Now this guy is a rat bastard, defense is high, I don't have much that can hit him for neutral damage other than non-stab or non-physical attacks when I'm invested in attack, you know, physical attack, the thing that I've been doing most of the game. And if it weren't for the Lax Incense I had bought in the first area of Coumarine City, I would have lost right here. But instead, thanks to a miss and a lucky low roll that brings Zygarde down to exactly 1 HP, can't make this shit up, 1 HP, I'm able to KO, getting to his Weepin' Bell, then KOing that with a neutral Land's Wrath for the closest win you can physically get. Here I thought I was going to have to kick the shit out of an old man and run away swiftly, but no, he ended up kicking the shit out of me! One Team Flare beat down later, and it's already time to loop back around on Lumio City for our 5th gym battle. Now this reminds me a lot of Unova's loop of a region, but instead of just being the basis for the first 5 gyms. Interesting how a loop that goes in on itself can be used multiple ways in just Pokemon. I'm sure plenty of other RPGs that I've both not played and have but can't remember off the top of my head have used a setup like this to a good effect. I don't know, leave examples in the comments if you can remember. Clement isn't too difficult after all, he's an electric type gym leader and I'm using a ground type. What more do I need to say? Well, I guess I do have to take out the Emolga without rock type moves, which really isn't hard when I've got access to return, but he does try to lay it in with a critical Aerial Ace that does nothing, using 2 returns to take it out, then using Land's Wrath to KO both Magneton. After a couple of attempts, Biggest Sturdy allows it to set up electric terrain and get potion locked, then Heliolisk to end the battle. Very simple, very dumb. At least I got a free fight out of using this dumb snake. Moving into Route 14 means it's time for another Serena fight. Sure, she may have evolved her Frogadier into Greninja, but Water Shuriken really doesn't do much more than a Water Pulse does. So once again, why bother talking about her when you've already seen the same fight 3 times now? Moving up into Laver City brings me to the first of 2 very much threatening gym leaders of this generation, that being Valerie and the Fairy-type gym. Basically a 3D version of Sabrina's gym from Kanto. This is a simple trek through to get to the gym leader, but man, I'm kinda scared to see if I can take her down safely enough. After giving Zygarde the King's Rock, it's a pretty simple fight at first, with her lead Mawile being a one-shot with Land's Wrath thanks to that steel typing, and Mr. Mime being a near one-shot with it. However, that's just enough to let her set up Reflect. I figured that would be probably the case, and since she's got a few healing items, I may as well leave her in on her weakest Pokemon and flinch my way through the Reflect with Bite. And that strategy works somewhat. I'm able to burn through Reflect, waste both of her Hyper Potions, and KO with Land's Wrath as Sylveon comes in last, getting blasted down with 2 Land's Wraths, doing a big amount of damage with Dazzling Gleam, but not outspeeding, so it's not enough of a threat worth fretting about. One extreme problem, one to go, but we won't get to him until a bit later. One Pokeball Factory trek later, and no, none of the Team Flare admin battles are remotely difficult enough to comment on. Why'd you ask? We're able to get the Master Ball, the Big Nugget, and realize that both are shaped in the same fashion, just so that we can say we earned our balls for saving our corporate overlords from the tyranny of the union that is Team Flare. Huh. Sounds really bad now that I come to think of it. Maybe I should let Lysander blast that ultimate weapon. Alas, I need gym badges, and letting that thing go off means I don't get gym badges. So, after clearing out the Frost Cavern and making my way into Route 17, I arrive in Anastar City, right in time for another fight against Serena, and this is literally the same as the last 3 fights against her. Why won't you give Greninja Ice Beam yet? Well, technically she does gain a Flareon, but that's easily outed with Land's Wrath, so that's not much of an improvement all things considered. With her down though, it's an easy walk through this neat little gym to find our 7th gym leader, Olympia, who's a Psychic type user, and of course has screens, so we'll have to play around those as best as possible. She leads off with Sigilyph while I go with Zygarde's Bite, hoping for a flinch so that I can avoid Reflect, but she's able to get it off. So I shift my strategy to getting Paralysis with Dragon Breath in order to nullify additional damage taken off of stuff like Psychic, and sure, I do get the Paralysis, but unfortunately Psychic still lands, as she's left with a sliver of HP. From here though, it's just Bite Mania until I easily attempt the flinch and paralyze her out of the game plan, but a critical bite is able to seal the deal early, leading to Slowking. Now this guy has Calm Mind, and I think it's wise to get the paralysis first before these get set up, especially since Reflect still has a turn of activity. And that works as Dragon Breath gets the paralysis on the first turn it's out, but Calm Mind still goes through, making it a pretty easy 3-shot with Bite through a Hyper Potion, leaving just Meowstic. This just goes like how it does with Serena. Fake Out, Flinch, Bite, barely any damage from Meowstic, but in this case none as Calm Mind is used, and a second Bite to get the KO and the win. Well then, can't be too bad about that. Unfortunately no Crunch until level 51, but it doesn't look like we needed it at all. Now that we're done with her though, it's time for the story to grab me by the balls and drag me into the part of the game that I hate playing. Essentially, this is broken down into a triad of fights against Lysander with barely anything else of note, and thankfully the first 2 are pretty simple. Well, for me they are. I knew these fights were going to be a problem from the get-go if I didn't have exactly Hidden Power Electric on Zygarde, so I made sure that I rolled the correct IVs for this before going against him. First out is Mienfoo, an easy KO with Land's Wrath as Gyarados takes center stage, full into 2 hidden powers after Outrage hits for just under half. Third out is Murkrow, taking a hidden power and using Foul Play for light damage as a second KOs, leaving just Pyroar to, unfortunately, not fall to Land's Wrath, getting off Hyper Voice to bring Zygarde down to 12 HP, but that's more than enough to outspeed and land a second Land's Wrath for the KO and the win. Yeah, there was no chance of me getting through that fight without the help of hidden power. Maybe I could have done it with, like, Toxic Stall and Double Team bullshit, but we're trying to keep that to an absolute minimum due to both the inconsistency of those strategies, but also since it makes these videos really f***ing boring. Also, all of the admins that are throughout this dungeon are just simple to take down, nothing worth commenting about, leading to the second battle against Lysander inside of the Geosenge Town Lab. And it goes similarly to the first one, just with Mienshao and Honchkrow being at his disposal instead of the base versions. I also finally gained access to Earthquake for this fight, and that 10 additional power is enough to make the likes of Pyroar a one-shot, but that's not the fight I should be worrying about. No, The last fight against Lysander right after capturing Yveltal is probably the biggest struggle in the run. Well, after getting Yveltal knocked out, that is. Seriously, I absolutely detest the fact that I'm forced to have a legendary take the first slot of my party in these sorts of fights. Despite the story kind of commanding it, I still want the option. It's kinda dumb that it's here. Anyway, I'm able to one-shot both Mienshao and Pyroar with 1 Earthquake each, then KO Honchkrow with 2 returns after a critical Night Slash, does a little under a quarter damage, leaving just Gyarados. Now, why would Gyarados be a threat all of a sudden? Well, this is our first instance of fighting a Mega Evolution in this game that isn't against the tutorial Lucario, and boy howdy does the change to Dark type really mess up a ton of math. Sure, Focus Blast becomes super effective here, but it only has 70% accuracy and still doesn't one-shot. Everything else just ends up hitting and doing pitiful damage, allowing for Gyarados to quickly outpace Zygarde's damage with 2 Outrages to KO and end this attempt. Well then, that didn't go as planned. Actually, it kind of did. This is about as far as Zygarde's able to go in a hardcore Nuzlocke setting by itself, and if you don't mind me putting on my uber-level nerd glasses on for a minute, allow me to explain why. Firstly, we were already too high level going into Lysander that third time that we were going to go over the level cap for Wulfric, but that's beside the point. Let's take a gander at the level up learn set though. Let's just say, hypothetically, that Crunch is the last move in the level up learn set accessible. The only physically offensive moves we have here are of the ground, dark, and normal types, with Dragon being locked into special until, why the fuck, level 93? None of this really handles the Water Dark Mega Gyarados, especially after the Intimidate drop of the original form, so what about TMs? Well, let's go down the list. Toxic is available and can be alternated with Protect along with leftovers from Route 12, which were accessible with Cut, but that only leaves 2 more learn slots. Of course, we don't need much else other than Land's Wrath and Hidden Power Electric, so after doing a quick simulation with a bit of investment in defense to see how that ends up going, I jump back into the run, getting through all of the simple stuff we've already been through to get back to the third fight with Lysander once again. Thankfully without any scares and with a few more reset bags to ensure battles go exactly like I need them to go. Going straight to Gyarados, I'm at nearly full HP, and thanks to said leftovers and Protect, I'm able to get there. Deliver a Toxic while Outrage just does slightly over half, just enough to heal out of that range of the second one with 2 turns of leftovers, leading to a KO with Earthquake to win. Well, I didn't expect that to work. Kinda thought I was gonna have to cut the video here, but I guess onward we continue. After a quick battle against Professor Sycamore in Coraway Town, I'm able to head through Route 19, including 3 rival battles against Shauna, Tierno, and Trevor, which, oddly enough, despite being a gauntlet, don't provide much of a threat. Though Tierno is still an asshole for not considering that my Zygarde wasn't healed between the fight with him and Shauna, not to mention with him using a Talonflame as his lead. It was not fair, and I do not appreciate him for trying to screw me over. With all of them taken care of though, it's time for the last city I need to worry about, Snowbell, and the last gym leader, Wulfric. Now, he's an ice type user, would make sense based on the look of his town, and I know we're all going to just realize that if someone blows a cold breeze in the direction of Zygarde, it dies, so we're going to have to be uber careful here. Thanks to the power of the Black Belt as a held item though, I'm easily given access to powered up Brick Break and Focus Blast, and yes, this item with Focus Blast is indeed the only way I can one-shot Avalugg, so here's hoping. Abomasnow's Ice Shard does a little under half as Brick Break is a 2-shot, with him not going for it on the second turn, probably because Ice Beam was seeing the KO, but thanks to that outspeeding Brick Break, we live to fight another day as Cryogonal comes out second, shattering at the hands of our Brick Break due to having a much less than stellar physical defense, leaving just Avalugg. Now here's hoping Focus Blast lands and... yes! Alright, it connects. 70% accuracy rolls in my favor and manages to get the KO, winning me the Iceberg badge and the right to challenge the Elite Four. Alright, that should be the last luck-based thing. Now with one more obstacle in the way, Victory Road just about done and over with, all that's left in terms of threat is another battle against Serena, and how hard could she potentially be? Well, she's added Altaria, which is, super effective in 2 ways, because it has Moonblast, and Greninja now has Ice Beam, so it should be at least a little bit more difficult than anticipated. She leads off with Meowstic like always, and I go with Crunch on Zygarde after taking a Fake Out, barely not KOing as Psychic does light damage, KOing with the second Crunch as Greninja comes out second. Now I figured this is probably the best point this out, but here's the fight where reinvesting into max speed EVs is key. If I didn't do that, max attack, and held the black belt to power up Brick Break, I would not be one-shotting this Greninja without Ice Beam making contact and immediately destroying me. But thankfully it's just enough to get that KO, leading to Altaria. Now I did just pass level 63, giving me access to Dragon Pulse with which to two-shot Altaria through its own Dragon Pulse, leaving just 2 Mons remaining. One of which is pretty simple, Absol is a Brick Break away from death, and one is Brain Numbing, with Flareon being an Earthquake away from spontaneous combustion. Alright, and with that, we have just enough experience to get through the remainder of Victory Road, with only about 200 to spare, making it time to take on the League. I've already got all the held items and TMs I could ever want for this run, so let's just jump in. I'm sticking with the max investment in attack and speed with 4 EVs and HP for the first 3 members of the League, starting with Malvo since she's the easiest to take care of due to Rock Slide access, Pyroar is a one-shot with Earthquake, Talonflame with Rock Slide, Torkoal barely not with Earthquake, but just enough for me to heal lock her, then flinch with Rock Slide and KO with Earthquake, leaving just Chandelure to, you guessed it, go down to Earthquake as well. Just what I was hoping for, a member that could give me a bit of a level advantage with little to no risk whatsoever, and I could even say the same thing about Wickstrom as his lead Klefki falls for the mistake of try to attack with the super effective Dazzling Gleam, despite Klefki not being an attacker and having Prankster and therefore priority on status moves. Second is Probopass, and while it does have Sturdy, why waste Earthquake power points since Brick Break is 4 times effective anyway, taking a light Flash Cannon and full restore locking him until Probopass goes down. Not bad whatsoever, though 2 of the same item on the same Mon is a little irritating. Now for the fun part of the fight, Aegislash. Trying to play around the Blade form and Shield form is probably the most difficult thing I can do, and unfortunately I do fail the game once as King's Shield lowers my attack by 2 stages, though I do eventually KO with Earthquake, leaving just Scizor. Now if it weren't for leftovers of Protect being able to recover my HP in rather large quantities, I'd probably get destroyed here due to my lack of attack stat at this moment, but this is plenty enough to keep me alive through the Iron Heads, X-Scissors, and Bullet Punches thrown out, eventually allowing for Zygarde to KO with the likes of Brick Break and Earthquake to win. Drasna's even not too difficult, thanks to 3 out of her 4 Pokemon being weak to either ground or rock, despite being a dragon user, with her lead Dragalge being destroyed by an Earthquake as Altaria takes the field. No damage is able to connect on the first turn here due to her missing with Sing and me with Rock Slide, but the next 2 Rock Slides, the first of those being a flinch, do manage to KO as Noivern enters third, falling to the same sequence of 2 Rock Slides. Last out is Drud again, and thankfully Earthquake is a 2-shot here because, despite having wings, it's not part flying type, allowing for Zygarde to take a Dragon Claw for pretty good damage, recover for 2 turns thanks to leftovers and Protect, then hit 1 more Earthquake for the KO and the win. Awesome, 3 down, 2 to go, and it's reset bag time. For Seabold, I'm going for a mixed attack set, 128 attack, 128 special attack, and 252 speed. This is so that Hidden Power Electric gets a pretty good boost, as I'll be dealing with another Gyarados here. Seabold leads off with Clawitzer here, thankfully an easy to out Pokemon with 2 Earthquakes, but holy moly does Dragon Pulse do a boatload of damage here. I'm able to recover a bit from this, but not as much as I'd like as Gyarados comes in second. Now I'm willing to bet his first turn is spent on Dragon Dance despite having Ice Fang and me being around half damage, and I know I can outspeed after the first one, so I go for Hidden Power Electric, and the risk does pay off. I do over half, and he does go for Dragon Dance, KOing with the second Hidden Power Electric, and leading into Starmie. Now this is a pretty big fluke of a 2-shot as Crunch does below half, but that defense drop as he sets up Light Screen is easily enough for me to KO with the second Crunch, leaving just Barbaracle. I wish I could say Barbaracle provided for a nice epic climax to this fight, but no, it's just 2 Earthquakes after Razor's Shell fails to cut the mustard, or in this case, the 50% form Big Dumb Green Snake, winning me the match and leaving just Diantha. And, yeah, looking at our team, there is no physical way I'm getting through this alive without the power of cheese, so after a reset bag, it's time. Toxic. Double Team, Rock Slide, Protect, as well as 252 HP, 128 defense, and 128 special defense EVs, coming together to build the ultimate Zygarde! Well, ultimate irritation Zygarde at least. Yeah, Zygarde's not one to be able to get past this fight without the power of damage over time with Toxic, and evasion boosting with Double Team, matched with additional leftovers recovery with Protect. This should be enough to carry me through, but Hawlucha is a scary start off thanks to Swords Dance, but she decides to go straight in with Flying Press, not doing much damage before she starts using Swords Dance, so I'm able to go for Toxic, set up 5 Double Teams. Then she uses a full restore, then I hit another Toxic, set up the 6th, and make sure to hit a Rock Slide to guarantee the KO rather than a second full restore coming down, leading to Auroras. Now, it makes sense for her to throw this out second, after all, type advantage on Zygarde and all with the ×4 weakness, but you'd think the AI of the champion herself would be intelligent enough to swap out into this, rather than having just sat there with Hawlucha and let me set up everything I wanted. So, Blizzard misses as I use Toxic, Protect, then use Rock Slide to get the KO, doing the same to Goodra following up here. But man, was that a lucky bastard here, hitting 2 Dragon Pulses while I'm sitting at +6 evasion? If she was forced to use any other attack on her moveset, for instance, that's Muddy Water, Fire Blast, and Focus Blast, there's no chance in hell that would have even connected one of them. Alas, Zygarde's able to survive in the red HP territory, and stall out a bit before dealing out another Rock Slide to grab that KO. Okay, 3 down, 3 to go as Tyrantrum comes in, and oh boy, another super effective attack in Dragon Claw. But I am able to Toxic and use Protect to get some more HP in the back pocket, so I'm not in a terrible position, especially because I take the opportunity to let Diantha drain another full restore, while I drain the last 9 power points of Double Team, getting the remainder of Zygarde's HP back before using Rock Slide and Toxic damage to KO and lead into Gourgeist. This stupid thing is not a problem whatsoever, as Trick or Treat never lands, and Phantom Force is easy enough to block thanks to Protect, and it being a 2-turn move. However, the first time that it does go for it, I am a little bit of an idiot because I use Protect, then she uses that on the same turn, so whoopsie. But hey, that's not a big deal because I just Protect on the turn where she does go for it, and from there I'm easily able to KO. This leads just Gardevoir and Mega Evolution time. This is why I saved a Protect after using Toxic though. I wanted to get as much damage in as possible without risk, and I've already dodged 1 Moonblast here, so I'm in good shape. Protect gets her down in 8th, then Rock Slide brings her down by exactly half, so she heals after the 3rd round of Toxic damage. Full Restore locking her with Rock Slide and allowing for 2 more to get the KO and the win, putting me in the Kalos Hall of Fame with a single Zygarde. Well, that was what I would consider difficult, to be sure. You'd think that every single legendary that doesn't get hardwalled by an early game, like the Kanto birds in any region with a Rock-type first gym leader, would have an easy time getting through a vanilla Pokemon game, but Zygarde was missing a lot of the pieces that make those legendaries great. Setup moves and powerful stab being locked behind the level cap, as well as weak TM choices, really does cripple Zygarde. But it makes it for one of the most fun solo hardcore Nuzlockes with a legendary that you can embark on. I'm looking forward to trying this out in Sun and Moon or Ultra Sun and Ultra Moon in the future, you know, once I recover enough from the poison run to actually play those games again. With that said though, I hope you enjoyed the video, make sure to hit subscribe if you haven't already, like the video as well, and I'll see you all next time. Stay safe, stay healthy, and take care.